The conversation of your life. Local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
Well, it made the news in the Houston Chronicle talking about Pasadena, Texas council member who got removed from a meeting because the mayor didn't like what he was saying. No threat of violence, no violent acts, just didn't like what he was saying and had him removed. Well, the Houston Chronicle writes, Pasadena council members hope to tone down raucous meetings. Well, I hope so. It's not doing a lot to foster goodwill when you're throwing board members or council members out of the meetings. We've been talking about what went on with Sammy Casanedos in Pasadena, Texas. And also, incredibly, the same thing happened right here in the Coachella Valley at Mission Springs Water District.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We've got the police on the way. They're going to handle this disruption.
Okay, good.
Well, that's it. We've called the police. They'll handle this disruption. Now, absent physical violence or a credible threat of violence, when it's only a disruption, no matter how big a disruption it seems, it's not within the chair's domain to remove a member of a city council or a water board member by calling the police to do so. Now, I took a little bit of, I had a bunch of questions come in and says, okay, well, you say you're not supposed to do it, but what exactly can you do? People said, and I pointed out, go to Robert's Rules of Order, but that didn't seem to satisfy the people who had some questions who think that, well, hey, what are you supposed to do when somebody's disruptive? And we're talking about Pasadena, Texas, an incident in Pasadena, Texas with Councilmember Sammy Casados being removed from the meeting by Jim Wagner, the mayor. And they got into disagreement, and Wagner said, police chief, get this guy out of here. And out he went. And then up at Mission Springs Water District here in the Coachella Valley, Chairman Randy Duncan, after saying he'd had enough of hearing from board member Steve Grasha, said, that's it, we've called the police, they'll handle this disruption. And the police came, and out the door went Councilmember Grasha. Now, my contention, and that of a whole bunch of people I've talked to and checked with on this one, is that no, that's out of bounds. It's not within the domain of the chair to simply remove a member. I mean, how easy would it be for the majority to deal with whatever they wanted to deal with if they said, you know what, I'm tired of hearing from these guys, just get them out of the room and we'll just deal with it ourselves. It doesn't work for our system of government. So the question becomes, so what do? Does a chair of a meeting have no recourse when a meeting gets out of control or when it seems a council member has become overly disruptive? And yes, they do. It's called the proper exercise of parliamentary procedure, and that's most commonly spelled out in Robert's Rules of Order. Now, following last week's show, I said I received all these comments, and they said, well, that's easy for you to say, but what exactly would you do? Okay, here's what you do, and it's really as simple as this. First, if you sense a meeting's going to get out of order, you're supposed to take positive steps ahead of time to instill order. Now, if you're the chair and you got something that's coming up that's could possibly, this one isn't going to go over too well with some people in this room, well, you take some positive steps to instill order. Now, a discussion can be handled two ways. The chair can allow all members of the council to chime in as they like in a general, free-flowing discussion. And if everyone's getting along, then normal personal interaction norms will let the conversation and the meeting flow. No problem. Everybody's getting along. Go ahead, chime in. Chair takes a more relaxed position, doesn't exercise so much control. But if you have tension, then running a meeting with loose reins is a prescription for a meeting failing into chaos. So instead of a free-flowing meeting and style, you advise all members of the council how the discussion will take place. And it will take place like this, for example. So you have a consultant presentation going on, and you announce to everybody, hi, listen, we have a consultant who's going to give a presentation. And what I'm going to instruct is that all members of this council, this board, will hold their comments. There'll be no interruption until the presentation is done. Now, I recently had that request made to me of a chair where I was at a meeting. I'm on a board at the Airport Land Use Commission. We had a presentation going on, and I said, "Excuse me, may I ask a question?" And the chair said, "No, you know what? I think what I want to do is let's wait, let him finish his presentation, and then ask you a question." I said, "Okay, good idea." And I got out a pencil and a paper, and I wrote my question down. You announce at the outset how the meeting will be run, and the presentation will be handled, and you get out a paper and a pencil, and you write your questions down. And until the presentation is done, no members of the council or board will be recognized to speak. And that's right in Robert's Rules of Order. Chair recognizes when members can speak, and it's up to the chair to determine how they're going to exercise that Robert's Rules of Order. Now, what happened at the MSWD board meeting was consultants going through his presentation. One of the board members asks a question, gets an answer, conversation, the presentation's interrupted. Then another board member asks a question. It's a little bit disagreeable and objectionable. And so instead of the consultant answering, he goes quiet because other council members or board members have chimed in.
Because and it's a topic that I'm going to bring up later on in section 8, but I'll address that when we get to section 8.
Okay. All right.
So maybe you might go over this again too and see how you might be able to reword that a little differently to make sure that the general manager doesn't get stuck in the middle of two board members not getting along. To direct them.
The politics should stay completely out of the room, and you're trying to insert it in the general manager's office. Well, it's true.
Well, that's what we're here
My
for.
problem with somebody that's a little more hard-headed than me should just be as public as possible, so that people have the ability to understand that two guys aren't getting along well. But when you try to put it in the back room where nobody gets to get the full breadth.
Right now.
Well, and I'm trying to.
Okay.
But
we
as far as I
agree
can tell,
on that.
you're trying.
Russ.
Okay.
So, okay.
No, I agree too. I think that in order for this to be an effective policy, it would have to be both those directors who have a dispute agreeing to have him mediate.
You're right.
So if you start a meeting allowing general questions, but because you have board members that hate each other, it degenerates into an argument. I mean, that's so easy to predict.
We're going over it. We haven't voted on anything. Just sit there and listen and put your comments. If your comments are constructive on this, that's great. But so far, they haven't
just
been.
pointed out. I
Well,
was
then
just
tell
asking
them which
a
part you
question,
would like and have
for
it changed.
instance.
How would you like to have it changed? Tell us.
I think that the
No,
board
in here,
majority
in
shouldn't
here.
use anything like this as a weapon, because it will split the board in such a
Well,
way
if you
that
don't
there
have
will
any-
be no way
you don't have
to
anything
conduct a board
corrective to
meeting
say-
between now and 12 months from now until there's an election and the voters get a chance
Steve.
to hear all of the nonsense you guys have been.
So same thing. Okay, time out, everyone. Here's what you do. I'm going to change how this meeting is going to. So you started out with the meeting running loose, and now you decide, you know what, I got to get control of this. That's what you're supposed to do as the chair. So I'm changing how this meeting will continue. Hold your questions, write them down. When it's your turn to speak, speak as efficiently as you can and stay on subject. And those of you not recognized, do not interrupt until I recognize you.
Are you done?
Oh.
Can you be an adult for
I'll
one
give another
meeting?
one. The first time I met him, I asked him what he did for the district. His mouth fell open, his
You know
face
what?
turned pale,
You know
and he
what?
didn't answer. And it's because he was doing this.
You have no business yelling at a
I'm
consultant
not
here.
yelling.
So what the heck do you think you're doing?
For certain, the chair can't start participating in the disruption. You know, as a chair, you got to take things like, you know, if somebody throws a jab at you, it's got to be like water off a duck's back. You know, a good way for the chair to deal with upsetting comments directed his way is to just ignore them and, you know, let them roll off his back, because your job is to keep the meeting in order, not to add to the commotion.
Okay.
You need to read this.
Yeah, you need to read.
This
That's
is,
for sure.
Like I said the other day,
This
I've been
is
doing
nothing.
this since
This-
high
this-
school. I know how this play ends.
this is your first elected seat. Don't
No,
tell me
it's
you
not.
do.
And again, that's all contained in Robert's Rule of Order, spelled out very clearly. But you got to take the time to read Roberts. You got to study it. You got to learn it, and you got to apply it. And, you know, if it still degenerates, let's just say the mayor's doing what he can, or the chair's doing what they can to control the meeting, and it still degenerates, the chair has the authority to call a recess. And if it's a particularly heated board meeting, you know, a 5-minute recess is probably not enough. Announce a 30-minute recess or maybe a 1-hour recess. That long of a recess has the effect of getting people's attention. They cool down. Sometimes a disruptive member will say after that much time, screw this. I'm not going back in. Well, hey, your meeting's solved as a chair if somebody voluntarily decides they're not going to come back. And again, that's all in Robert's rules. It says what you can do. Call a recess. Now, I added the part about making the recess longer if necessary. Anyhow, we're going to get back to this. I got a little bit more to cover on this subject for you. Not much, but I just want to finish up this thought. The bottom line is, when a meeting devolves into what the chair considers to be disruptive members, you can't call the police. You call a recess. That's okay. That's in Robert's rules. And if it gets really bad, even if you have to call a recess and you still can't bring order, well, you simply call the meeting adjourned. You know what? You have that authority as the chair of the meeting. And, there's very few things on an agenda that can't come back at a time when cooler heads prevail. Send everybody home. Tell them, hi, we're going to come back again. And we'll take this up again. Give people a chance to think about it and, cool down, maybe take a different approach, reflect on maybe how they hadn't handled themselves properly. And, it's up to everybody on a board. It's not just the chair's fault. Every member of that council should read Robert's Rules of Order. Every member of that board should know it, learn it, and apply it. So when the chair says, hi, sorry, you're not going to speak right now. Well, in deference to the rules, even if you don't like the chair, in deference to the rules, you got to follow that. Otherwise, the meeting's going to get adjourned and you can't conduct business. And I can't say this enough, it was egregious to have called the police to remove what the chair considered disruptive members.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We've got the police on the way. They're going to handle this disruption.
Okay, good.
Handle this disruption. No, you handle it. Okay? Sorry. That sounds harsh. Too bad.
Are the cops really coming?
Yes, I'm having the police come in and escort the Russ out.
Okay. We got the camera on?
Cameras are on.
Good.
Recorder's definitely going.